Well, you know what differentiates a successful organization from that which is not so successful and struggles? Well, that is leadership. Because as leaders, we are the people who are on the driving seat and we can drive the vehicle either on the road at the fastest speed possible, safely, or we may go off roading and destroy the vehicle and the people in it, causing an accident to happen. Now, as a leader of an organization myself, as a consulting company, I spend a lot of time in powering myself up with a lot of knowledge, constant knowledge. How do I do that? I do that by reading books. I do that by watching podcasts. I do that by consuming a lot of YouTube content. Any content that can come my way that can help me or widen my perspective about life or business or people management in general, I consume that content. In a very recent time, I have read a book called Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty, and there are several beautiful learnings that impacted my own way of looking at other people, and it has kind of changed the way I go about managing leadership for my organization and also what I recommend my clients to do. Now, this book has tremendous amount of learnings, and these learnings are for everybody. It's for students, it's for professionals, it's for leaders in the organization, managers, supervisors, it's also for entrepreneurs, whether you're in a family business or otherwise. It's for everybody. Now, this book has a lot of ideas, but for the purpose of this video, I have selected 5 key ideas that can transform you as an individual and also make you a better leader. So without any further ado, let's jump in. Let me give you a preview before we go into the 5 points that I have to share with you. Leaders or any kind of good professional comes across a lot of challenges in his everyday life, and these challenges can result into stress. These challenges could be with people, so it may result into a fight. This challenge could also be taking birth from the fear the person really has, and therefore it's extremely important to manage one part of your body, which is your brain, and how you go about thinking about a certain thing. And these 5 points are exactly the points that has the ability to help you make this part of your body extremely powerful. So let's jump into the 5 points now and understand what they talk about. The first point is called identity, and the author Jay Shetty puts it brilliantly well. He says, I am not what I think I am not what you think I am what I think you think I am. Now, this is so powerful, and it's powerful because it's the way you see yourself is what is going to determine how you do a certain thing. If you see yourself as somebody who's slow, then you will try and do everything fast. You perceive that the other person may interpret you as slow, and therefore you are trying to do things fast, and you require a lot of validation. You may want that person to indicate to you that, hey, you know what, I don't see you as slow. And that, the author says, can become stressful and not a very good way of creating your own identity. So there is another way to deal with your self identity and therefore the kind of actions that you take. And he proposes the following. He says that you all of us have something called as values. Now, these values can also be used to dictate how we action life or how we do things in life. And these values come out of 3 things. First one is education, which is obviously we learn things about and we learn how things work, and therefore that broadens our perception, and we kind of find our place in that scheme of things, in how the world operates. The second thing is your upbringing. Now, here I'm not talking about how your parents brought you up or how my parents brought me up. I'm talking about what kind of scenarios that you experienced and the interpretations that you had with them. It's like I was discussing with somebody and I said, hey, you know what, when I was young, my financial condition was not that great, but I would never get into a fight. Now, why is that? Whereas my other friends who also had similar financial conditions would get into fist fights in the school. Why is that? Because maybe they saw a fist fight and they saw the person who initiated the fight came out as a winner and was respected for the strength or whatever that is, and their interpretation was having a fist fight was a good thing because they can get respected even when they don't have money. My interpretation of that fist fight was that the person who initiated the fight got hurt, spent a lakhs of rupees, his parents were worried, and he had to take a lot of pain in the hospital. Now, that is not something that I wanted for my family. So my interpretation was fist fight, bad thing. That's what I mean by upbringing. How you encounter situations and what you experience out of that. That's the place from where the value systems take birth. The third place where the value system can take birth is the current culture, which means the kind of people that you surround yourself with, their visions, their goals, and the way they go about actioning things. If you're sitting with people every day out who are running smaller companies and who don't have any vision to make it 100, 200, 500 crore company, then you are never going to have the feeling of creating a company which is 100, 200, 500. If all the people are of that caliber, then you are going to get motivated. You are going to think that way. So that's your current culture, the kind of people that you surround yourself with. The author says that to get the right identity, you got to continuously educate yourself. You got to make sure that you are getting the right interpretation or conclusions of what you experience, and that conclusion you have to be able to get from the culture, the kind of people that you sit with. The point number 2 is how to go about managing and understanding negativity. The author says that a lot of times we go about becoming negative because we talk negative, we feel negative, and we're surrounded with people who are also feeling the same thing. Here the author talks about 3 C's. What are the 3 C's? The first one is criticism, the second one is comparison, and the third one is complain. The author says we should be conscious about staying away from them unless the idea is to actually action and improve. Let's say you are criticizing an employee about him not doing a certain thing, or you're criticizing the government. It's not going to help you. What will rather help is if you understand the loophole or the constraint and then figure out a way around it. So if you're criticizing somebody, it's better to talk to that somebody and say, hey, you know what, this is what I don't think I appreciate. Can we do it in any other way? And that is what is going to help you. Comparing also, when you compare, don't compare with negativity. He says compare to reach there. So you should be looking at people who are better than you and can act as a benchmark. That kind of comparison is brilliant. He says that there are 3 core emotional needs that if absent, any one of these 3 needs, if absent, makes a person become negative, whether it's you or anybody else that is criticizing, complaining, and comparing. What are these 3 needs, core emotional needs? Well, the first one is peace. The second one is love. The third one is being understood. If anybody feels he's not understood, he's going to complain. He's going to say, hey, you know what, this guy doesn't understand. If anybody does not feel loved, then he's going to give hatred because he doesn't understand what being loved means. If anybody is not peaceful or his peace is disturbed because of a certain event that has happened, he is going to criticize and complain. So all the 3 C's are actually linked to these 3 emotional needs. Now, if you really understand this and write them down somewhere, every time you see a person criticizing, complaining, or comparing, you can start questioning and you will unveil that one out of these 3 emotional needs, love, peace, and understanding, is missing. There is something that is not going right or not getting fulfilled in one of these 3 things. And if you're able to help him see those things through, you've taken care of his negativity and therefore the negativity that you've gathered because of the conversation that you've had with them. You can do a self-evaluation on yourself too. When you feel like criticizing, complaining, or comparing yourself in the negative way, you should ask yourself, what am I missing? Am I not being loved? You should write down in ways in which you are being loved. Am I not peaceful? If that's the case, then figure out how you can get that peace. Or am I not being understood? And if that's the case, then you got to determine whether it is important for you to be understood by that person who's causing you stress. And if it is, then attempt to make him understand. And if it's not possible, then just accept the fact that it's not important for him to understand me and then move on from there on. But do not remain in the negative thought loop. The third point is called fear management. A lot of leaders, including me, deal with this day in, day out, right? We are fearful about investing into somebody because we don't know if the results are going to be there. We are fearful into entering into new markets. We are fearful before taking a big decision on recruiting a key person. On all of these fears kind of determine how successful we can become. So what the author says here, he says fear is good, but fear can also be bad. Now, good fears, he says, because it helps us not take extremely irrational decisions. Like if you were not fearful about anything, you would jump off the cliff because you don't have the fear of dying. You would drive rashly because you don't have a fear of accident. Now that way the fear is good because it keeps you in check. But then there are other fears which are irrational, which are stories that we create in the head, and those fears will need to be managed. So how do you go about managing fears? Well, the author says fear by itself is not a problem. What is the problem? Well, the problem is fear is most often not related to attachments, which means that if I am going to make a very big investment decision and I'm fearful of the outcome, fear is not a problem. The problem is my attachment to the money that I'm going to be investing. So if I can figure out how to deal with that attachment, then the fear will get disappeared. Now, how do I figure that out? Well, by learning more about what I'm going to invest in. So if I'm going to buy a software and I'm fearful, there's no point in being stuck with that fear. It's important that you understand what this loss of attachment from the money, because you're going to invest, will mean. That means you will need to learn more about the software. You need to learn more about how it will help you reach where your goal is faster than without a software. So if you are able to learn more, then you are able to manage that fear. Third point that has immensely impacted the way I operate, and that is routine. The author says that routine is extremely important for us humans, and he specifically concentrates on two kind of routines. He says the morning routine is extremely important because that kind of states or dictates how your day is going to be. And the second thing that he says is the evening routine is what decides whether you're going to do your morning routine or no. So he is recommending a routine that says give yourself time. Now here the word time is an acronym. T means thank every day. So whenever you get up, thank the Almighty or the nature or the universe or your God or Allah or whatever that you believe in. If just simply be thankful about the fact that you've got one more day to live your life the best way you can. I, which is the second letter in time, talks about insight, which means learn something new. Give your brain some breakfast, right? So you can maybe read a page in a book that you've been reading, consume a podcast while taking a walk or whatever, but read something that enhances your knowledge, that gives you more insight of how the world really operates. Then comes M. M stands for meditation. Now, while you give yourself insights, also is important to calm your mind down of the chatter that's happening. So you go about meditating. With meditation, there are people, now this is not in the book, but this is something that I'm saying. There are people who meditate for an hour long. I don't do that because I think if I attempt to do that, I kind of fail multiple times. So I take it slowly. There are days where I'm not meditated. So when I restart, I meditate for 5 minutes. Then I move it up gradually to 10 and then 15 and then 20. And that's how I do it. So even if you cannot meditate for an hour, that's all right. But do meditate for whatever time. Even if it's like 1 minute, it is better than not doing it. Now, these are things that you do for your brain. The last thing, which is E, that you do is for your body. It's also for the brain in a way. In fact, in a lot of ways, is exercise. So what the author tells you, it says, thank, give yourself some insights, meditate, and exercise. That's the way you set up your morning routine. Now, if you're able to follow this routine, I follow this routine and it really, really helps over a period of time. And initially it may be difficult, but as you move forward, it kind of becomes your nature. The fifth point is very, very interesting. And that is all about the mind, which is how do you go about managing and understanding your mind. So the author has used a brilliant analogy and that's what I'm going to talk. He says there are three entities at play at this point in time. The first one is your mind. The second one is your intellect, which is your ability to reason out something. And the third entity is your senses, which is your eyes, ears, nose, and touch, right? You feel, those are your senses. Now he says, think of your mind as a chariot. Think of your senses as a horse, which is going to pull the chariot. And your intellect is the ability to reason, is the charioteer, which means the person who's responsible to give direction to the horses so that the chariot goes in a certain direction. He says, the author says, when the intellect is not trained or is sleeping, that's when the senses, which means the horses, take control. Now, obviously, what this means is when you are not able to, or you decide to not use your ability to reason something, your ability to analyze something, then whatever is the first thought, that could be fear, that could be your perceived notion, that takes control. I got a call early in the morning today and the person had some resignations happening in his office. So he called me and he said, hey, you know what? There are people resigning and I think they're resigning because they feel that the leadership is taking more money than them having the appraisals. Now, when we discussed, and this is exactly when you're not using the intellect and you're letting the horses take control of the chariot. When we understood and when we spoke about these things, we realized that there was only one department that had lost employees, and that department was the quality department. And the people in that department went away and resigned because they were not happy with the amount of errors that were happening in production. They didn't want a salary increase, but they left for a better pay, obviously, because when you leave one organization and go to another one, you are going to get paid well, especially when the organization that you're leaving is the best in the breed in that place. Now, why did this happen? Because the owner was fearful, stressed, and that allowed him to not use his intellect, which is the charioteer, and the senses took over. Senses is that of fear, of stress, and that would have resulted into his chariot going off-road and then meeting an accident. I hope you love this video. If you like videos like this, then I'm going to do more of my learnings from the several books that I read, and I read a lot of them. I would recommend that you buy yourself a copy of Think Like a Monk from Jay Shetty. This is not a sponsored video, but I'm asking you to buy because I firmly believe that this book is good, and if you can read even a chapter out of this book yourself, you're going to learn more than the 5 points that I gave you, and it will 100% help you in the way you operate accelerate your life. So if you like this video, please hit a big fat thumbs up. If you've not subscribed, subscribe to this channel. It's free for you and it helps me let the YouTube know that we are making good videos and we need more subscribers. If you haven't commented on any of my videos, I would recommend you comment. Let me know how you find these videos. If you have more ideas, if you want to expand on the points, I'll be very happy to listen to all of you guys. I'm looking forward to listen to all of you guys. So until we meet next time, attempt to think like a monk and let the monkey mind away. And that is what is going to help all of you fine guys keep propelling.